The Iconian's blood sprayed Bruce's face as the human's serrated blade plunged into the alien's neck, twisting violently as the smuggler leaned close to hiss into his gasping victim's face. "I told you fucks not to double-cross me again." Bruce wiped the blood from his stubble as he scanned the seedy bar, patrons looking down to avoid the gaze of the battle-scarred human. Tales of the ex-marine's brutality were whispered across the Zaran system. Only one figure dared meet Bruce's eyes, a robed Iconian who gestured to the seat opposite him in a shadowy booth. The man slid into the seat, recognizing his occasional business partner. "Balos, you look like shit, even for an Iconian." The alien crime lord leaned forward, azure skin slick with fear sweat. "Listen close, human. Something big is happening. A new weapon like nothing seen before. It's Iconian. A convoy, moving it past here in 2 standard days. I need you to take it." "Stick it up your scaly ass," Bruce growled. "I'm done being your errand boy." "You'll want to see this." Balos slid a data chip across the table. "It's about that government project, the one your sister died for." Bruce froze, feeling like he'd taken a plasma bolt to the gut. He snatched the chip and slotted it into his decoder. He had to rip off his drink goggles as schematics for a super weapon flashed before his eyes. A weapon of human origin, something called Project Ragnarok. Bruce's hands shook as he gripped the decoder tight enough to crack it. A sick realization dawned on the war-weary soldier. His beloved sister, killed by the government for a secret so terrible she had to be silenced. He scrolled down, absorbing every terrible secret, until a flashing message caught his eye. "Convoy departing. Iconian Military Research Station Erebus in 36 hours. Bruce crushed the data chip and stood abruptly. The answer he'd sought for years, the truth behind his sister's death, would be aboard that convoy, along with a weapon that could devastate humanity if it fell into Iconian hands. The human slammed back the rest of his drink and strode towards the bar's exit, hand clutching the hilt of his blade. He had a new mission now, one of vengeance and survival. The aliens would learn the hard way. "Don't fuck with humans." Bruce slipped into Station Erebus disguised in the slate-grey jumpsuit of a janitor, an electrostatic duster in hand to complete the look. He kept his head down as he mopped floors, emptied waste receptacles, and scrubbed carbon scoring off bulkheads, all while mentally logging patrol routes, duty shift changes, and eavesdropping on loose-lipped soldiers. In the sub-levels of the Black Sector, Bruce cracked the lock on a data vault's blast door with a slicer spike and darted inside. His fingers flew over the control console, ripping through firewalls until a schematic bloomed to life on the screen. Bruce's blood chilled as he scanned the file. It was called a Proto-Universe detonator, codenamed Gehenna. Theoretically, it could trigger vacuum decay, unraveling reality and erasing entire star systems in an eye blink. And there, listed as Project Lead, was a name that made Bruce's stomach clench. Dr. Sarah Henry, his sister. The record painted a grim picture. Sarah had spearheaded Gehenna's development alongside Iconian researchers as a superweapon to end all wars, a deterrent against humanity's foes. But the Iconians double-crossed their human partners, seizing full control of Gehenna and perverting it into an instrument of galactic domination. Sarah wouldn't stand for her life's work being corrupted. The last file was an internal Iconian report, Sarah Henry's death. Lab accident, it claimed. But Bruce knew the truth now. His sister had been murdered, silenced for defying alien treachery, and they had the audacity to cover it up. Bruce's teeth ground as he continued scouring the data. There, a top-secret transport schedule. Gehenna prepped for relocation to an Iconian stronghold aboard a military convoy, departing Erebus in less than an hour. Bruce rigged a remote detonator to a cluster of fuel cells a level below, a little parting gift. He crept towards the hangar, keeping to shadows and ducking security cams. The charges went off in a rumbling staccato, the deck shuddering underfoot. Alarms shrieked and boots pounded as soldiers scrambled to contain the crisis. Exploiting the chaos, Bruce slunk aboard the unguarded transport shuttle and secreted himself behind a pallet of ration crates. The ship lurched as it lifted off, shooting out the Magcon field and into the void. Bruce tensed when he felt cold metal kiss the back of his neck, the distinct muzzle of a blaster carbine. "Did you really think you could sneak aboard my ship without me knowing, little human?" a voice growled, dripping malice. Slowly, Bruce turned to face his captor. The Iconian was clad in matte black armor, a Punisher-class disruptor leveled at Bruce's head. Even without the distinctive kill tally etched into his breastplate, Bruce recognized the infamous Razex, scourge of the Iconian Blackwatch. The alien's lipless maw curved in a cruel sneer. "I gutted my share of your kind in the Frontier Wars, monkey," Razex hissed. "Killing one more will be a pleasant diversion." Bruce moved fast, grabbing the disruptor and twisting. But Razex was faster, a snap kick crushing Bruce's ribs. The human reeled, gasping. Razex pounced, slamming Bruce against the hull and throttling him one-handed. "Your species sickens me," Razex snarled, talons sinking into Bruce's throat. "Pathetic mammals, all mewling and begging. I will take great satisfaction in your extinction." Lunging blindly, Bruce's flailing hand closed on a plasma welder. Desperation fueled him as he swung the hissing tool up and in. The ionized tip crunched through Razex's eye and into the gel-filled socket with a wet squelch. Razex howled, convulsing as the neural shunt in his skull fried. Teeth bared in a rictus of agony, he collapsed in a thrashing heap. Not taking any chances, Bruce dragged Razex's spasming body to the airlock and punched the outer hatch release. The Iconian vanished in a burst of escaping atmosphere, whipping away into the abyss. The shuttle shuddered as it set down in a cavernous hangar. Bruce slunk down the boarding ramp, ducking behind a forest of stacked cargo modules. The ship he'd stowed away on was now ensconced in the bowels of a truly massive craft. An Iconian dreadnought. Creeping through the labyrinth of crates, Bruce heard a subsonic thrum that rattled his molars. Flattening himself against a container, he peeked around the corner. What he saw turned his guts to ice. In the center of the hangar, an obsidian cube pulsated with malevolent crimson light, baleful arcs of energy skittering across its surface. Gehenna, and hunched over a control console wired to the cube, was a towering Iconian with silver carapace and a scorched pit where his left eye should be. "Razex," Bruce breathed, hardly believing what he was seeing. "How?" Bruce stood frozen in disbelief, his mind reeling at the sight of Razex hunched over Gehenna's control panel. The Cyclops Iconian's talons flew across the alien interface, prepping the doomsday device for its malevolent purpose. Suddenly the lights in the hangar cut out with a dying whir, plunging the cavernous space into inky blackness. A heartbeat later, emergency lighting sputtered to life, painting the room in hellish, strobing crimson. "Bruce Henry." Razex's voice boomed from the intercom, twisted with cruel gloating. "I knew you'd come for this, and now I have you trapped." Bruce's blood turned to ice in his veins at the Iconian's next words. "I let you beat me on the shuttle because I needed to be sure you were really the Bruce Henry, scourge of the Iconians. And now that I've confirmed it, I can tell you." He paused, savoring his revelation. "That your dear sister begged for her life like a whimpering tarback before I personally vivisected her." A howl of anguish tore from Bruce's throat, his body quaking with the sheer force of his rage. Razex had killed Sarah, butchered her, as she pleaded for mercy. The monster's voice crackled from the speakers again, swollen with sadistic pleasure at Bruce's torment. "This ship is already en route to the human colony of New Albion. When we arrive in their star system, I will test fire Gehenna and wipe out every last man, woman, and child, as humanity's punishment for daring to meddle in the affairs of their betters." Razex's grotesque chuckle made Bruce's skin crawl. "I want you to live long enough to see your species exterminated, Bruce, and thanks to Iconian biotech, I can regrow my eye and watch your despair with both." With a resounding clang, blast doors slid shut across the hangar entrance. Razex's mocking laughter echoed over the intercom as he remotely locked Bruce inside with Gehenna, sealing his fate. Pulse pounding, Bruce whirled around, tearing through the hangar in search of something, anything he could use. His frantic rummaging turned up only a standard mechanical toolkit, wrenches, drivers, a laser level. Useless. Then his wild eyes fell upon a plasma torch. Lunging for it, Bruce snatched up the searing hot tool and sprinted to Gehenna's menacing bulk. Dropping to his knees, he attacked an access panel on the cube's housing, prying it open to reveal a tangled nightmare of wiring and circuitry within. Bruce's mind raced. He was no quantum engineer. Trying to surgically disable such an unfathomably complex doomsday device would be impossible. Impossible for Bruce Henry to shut down, but maybe not impossible for him to utterly destroy. To kill it, even if he killed himself in the process. Jaw clenched, Bruce all but dove into Gehenna's innards. Sparks showered his face as he soared through conduits, with ferocious abandon, ripping out entire junction boxes, melting through circuit boards. Acrid smoke belched from the cube's guts as Bruce inflicted as much senseless destruction as possible. He didn't know if his sabotage would force Gehenna to power down or catastrophically detonate, erasing him and the dreadnought from existence in a reality-unraveling blast. At this point, he didn't care which. Suddenly, Gehenna began to shudder violently beneath him, its surface growing white-hot. Scorching heat assaulted Bruce's face as he scrambled back. He hurled himself behind a shipping container, making himself as small as possible. A blinding flare exploded from the malfunctioning cube with a deafening boom. A gargantuan electromagnetic pulse tore through the ship, overloading every electronic system in a massive power surge. Crackling webs of electricity arced through the hangar before everything went terrifyingly black and silent. Emergency lights flickered to sputtering life, bathing the hangar in a hellish crimson glow. Heart-pounding, Bruce crept towards Gehenna's now dark and silent bulk. He reached out a trembling hand to touch the cube's obsidian surface. Without warning, a taloned hand burst from the deck plating and clamped around Bruce's ankle in a vice grip. Razex heaved himself up from under the floor, his once gleaming carapace now scorched and oozing ichor from a dozen weeping wounds. The ruined pit of his eye socket blazed with unspeakable malevolence as he fixed his remaining eye on Bruce. "I will suffer for this affront," Razex forced out through shredded mandibles, drawing a wicked, curved Iconian bloodsickle from his belt. Bruce scrabbled backwards in a desperate crabwalk, hand frantically groping for anything to defend himself with. His fingers closed around something, a severed high-voltage power cable, still spitting angry sparks. Razex lunged, sickle slashing down. Bruce rolled aside and jabbed the crackling cable into the gaping breach in the Iconian's thorax. Razex loosed an ungodly shriek as thousands of volts surged through his exoskeleton, cooking him from the inside. The stench of charring chitin seared Bruce's nostrils. Razex crumpled, his exoskeleton fusing into a smouldering, twitching ruin. Bruce snatched up the fallen bloodsickle and raised it high, point down. He plunged it into Razex's skull with a sickening crunch, twisting the blade to make certain. Klaxons screeched incessantly as Bruce sprinted for the hangar control room, his mind racing. He had to find some way to warn the new Albion colony that this dreadnought was bearing down on them. He slapped the general distress beacon, praying someone would intercept it. But he knew the chances were slim this deep in Iconian space. Bruce's fingers flew over the console, desperately searching the ship's computer for anything that could help. His blood turned to ice as he accessed the cargo manifest. This vessel wasn't merely a dreadnought, it was a troop carrier. Buried in its armored bowels, ranks upon ranks of Iconian gene soldiers slumbered in cryotanks, bred for the sole purpose of exterminating humanity. Tens of thousands of them. Bruce pounded the console, a cry of helpless rage tearing from his throat. But then a glint caught his eye outside the viewport, a small object tumbling end over end against the starfield. Fingers shaking, Bruce zoomed the external cameras in on it. His heart seized. It was an Iconian tactical nuclear charge, no doubt jettisoned from the ship's magazine when Gehenna's electromagnetic tantrum burned out the dreadnought systems. And it was drifting closer with each rotation, on a terminal trajectory, with the warship's unshielded underbelly. Bruce stared at the tumbling nuke drifting towards the exposed underbelly of the dreadnought, a desperate plan forming in his mind. He knew with cold certainty that if the warhead struck the ship, the resulting blast would vaporize the entire vessel and everyone on board, including Bruce himself. But it would also incinerate the tens of thousands of hibernating Iconian gene soldiers in the dreadnought's hold, saving countless millions of human lives on New Albion and other colonies. Bruce's jaw tightened as he opened a comm channel and set it to broadcast on all frequencies. He leaned close to the mic, his voice low and heavy with purpose. "This is Bruce Henry of Earth, aboard the Iconian dreadnought. I have seized control of an Iconian superweapon and intend to detonate it in the heart of Iconian space." Bruce paused, swallowing hard. When he continued, his voice wavered with emotion. "I know I won't survive this, but know that I do this for my sister Sarah and for all of humanity." His words turned hard as steel. "Let this be a message to the Iconians and any other species who would threaten Earth. Humanity doesn't start fights, but by all that we hold dear, we will finish them. We will suffer and sacrifice and die to protect our own. 100 of you will fall for every one of us." Bruce's voice dropped to a growl. "So to the Iconians and all the other galactic vultures waiting to pick our bones, I say this: tread lightly, this is the way." With that, Bruce slammed his fist down on the control panel, manually overriding the dreadnought's maneuvering thrusters. The deck shuddered beneath his feet as the massive ship lurched, slowly rolling to expose its unarmored belly to the incoming nuke. Bruce sagged back in the command chair, suddenly feeling very tired. He closed his eyes and whispered, "Sarah, I'll see you soon." Moments later, the nuke impacted the dreadnought's hull. For a fraction of a second, the shape charge unleashed the power of a small sun, generating temperatures and pressures not seen since the birth of the universe. In an instant, the Iconian ship, Gehenna and Bruce Henry, were erased from existence, atomized in the blinding heart of a nuclear fireball. The detonation lit the void of space for light years in all directions. On the surface of Iconia, the natives looked up in confusion and dawning horror, as a second sun blossomed to malevolent life in the night sky, heralding the death of one of their mightiest warships. In the years that followed, humanity was left alone as word of the terrible price the Iconians paid for their perfidy spread. Hushed tales were told of the unrelenting human in the Orion Spur who had sacrificed everything to keep his species safe. As generations passed, Bruce Henry's stand passed into legend, the details growing murky with time's passage. Gradually, the fear he had struck into humanity's foes faded. The Iconian defeat was forgotten, dismissed as exaggerated myth. But then a human exploration vessel went dark in the Gliese 581 system. A single distress beacon activated, transmitting a terse three-word message before falling ominously silent. "They're coming back." In the cold blackness of space, an armada of Iconian warships, larger and more powerful than any seen before, shimmered into existence. Hatred burned in the crew's eyes as they set an implacable course for Earth. Humanity's short respite was over. The true war was about to begin. You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.